Ever since the dawn of humankind, we've sought the origins of our life and its purpose. Some have chosen to look to science, religion, or philosophy for answers. Many have turned to the great masters such as Lao Tzu, the Buddha, and Jesus Christ for spiritual illumination. Still others have sought truth through their own direct experience. All of us are searching, knowingly or unknowingly, for enlightenment, truth, and harmony in our lives. This program, hosted by Dr. Gregory Penn, will help you aspire to a more fulfilling and rewarding life.
Every day we take a step, we understand. The closer that we get, we'll find in who we are. We choose between the left and right, the ups and downs, the darkness or the light. We'll find in who we are. There's so many roads and rivers that run through this mystery. We're finding our way together.
Good morning and welcome to Aspire. It's so beautiful out here in the ocean. You can feel the waves even though you stand on the beach in the brisk air. Your mind suddenly becomes very clear in moments like this, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So much of our life is under the burden of our mind, and I'd like to help you unburden it, so please stay tuned with us. Thank you. You know, there are those individuals, teachers, all sorts of people in metaphysics who would have you believe that you are your mind, that your thoughts and your attitudes of mind denote who and what you are. In fact, there's a lot of teaching in metaphysics these days that what you think is what you are. That's not necessarily true. That's not necessarily true. A lot of people think that if you just change the thought, you will have changed the person. And that's not true either. Just because you change a thought in a person doesn't mean that the person's changed. I can artificially change any thought in my mind that I want. I could look at someone over here who maybe has hurt me very much in my life and look at that person and say, they're okay, because I know I should think that. You know that? You've done this with people? And still, in the back of my mind and in my emotions, you hear those haunting voices going, we hate you. You no good slob. You've heard that, haven't you? And then you've heard people say, don't think those thoughts. You're not supposed to think that. You see, you can have any thought you want. That doesn't mean your life has changed at all. Probably, and if we're very honest, this kind of teaching about changing your thoughts will change your life is the most superficial of all teachings and makes people who practice it think they've changed their life more than what they've changed. In many years as a teacher, as a minister, I've had people come into my office and sit down and say to me, you know, I've changed my life so much, I've changed my thinking about everything, but the more I change my thinking, the more things stay the same. I still have the same problems I always did, but I've changed my thoughts about them, but nothing's really changed. I'd like to look at our minds for a moment. We labor very heavily under our mind. What is the mind? If we can change our life, and we can't change it through our mind, how do we change our life? What do we change if we're going to make some drastic changes in our life? It is never through your mind. I'd like to give you a teaching on the mind. The Buddha did it the best. The Bodhisattva gave us the most insight on this in the Dhammapada. And again, I use this because I think it's such a magnificent teaching. He makes it very clear to us. He said, your worst enemy cannot harm you as much as your own thoughts unguarded. But once mastered, no one can help you as much, not even your mother or your father. What does he mean by that? You know, our minds, the way they are our own worst enemy. It is true. We have created a mind inside of ourselves that is separate from our heart. Therefore, our minds can work separately from our heart. Do you remember what Jesus said? You speak a good talk. You talk a good talk, but your heart is not with me. You honor me with your lips, he said, but your hearts, they're far from me. It's one thing to talk out of our lips, and whatever you're talking out of your mouth, you're talking from your head. And you know you are, and I know I are. We all know he is. And we know when we're doing it. And affirmation and denial is one of those things that tells us that. We're affirming with our brain to accept something. We want more in our life. We are obsessed as a nation with more. That's all we want. More, more, more. More food, and we look like we need more food. More money, more cars, more possessions. We're obsessed with it. And so we have used religion in the form of metaphysics to try to get us this stuff and then to soothe the guilt for having it. Now listen to me. Your mind is meant to be a tool. It is meant to reflect. It is nothing more than an amplifier. And it can amplify anything. It can amplify our ego, it can amplify our insecurity, and it can amplify our pride. It just depends upon what you want to do with it. I've said to you many times that the longest, most powerful journey you will ever make is from here to here, your heart. That's where it's all happening. And what Buddha is saying there is really very true. Your mind, left unguarded, can hurt you deeply. And the unguarded mind is not a paranoid mind. It is a mind, an unguarded mind that is, that thinks from ego, that thinks from its own vanity, that thinks from experience. Can we play with our minds a little bit? Let's do a little bit. I'd like you to observe your mind just for a minute with me. And please notice that your mind can only think of the future and what it will be, or the past and what it was. Think about this. Everything that you look at, everything that you judge, everything that you preconceive in your mind has been a product either of your past or your future paranoia. Now look at it. Try to have a thought in this now moment. The first thing that will happen when you try to think now is that you will start comparing this moment with other moments. Or you'll start comparing this moment with what you expected when you came here this morning. And if you didn't get what you expected, you'll be disappointed. Your mind can never stay right here. Only your heart can stay right here. Your heart lives in the now. That's all it has. It's very aware of the situations around it and within it, and it seeks to work from that premise. Spirituality works with the heart, then reflects in the mind. We work in the heart first to find ourselves. Then we amplify what we have found in our heart through compassion and love, and we let our mind amplify that. Most people strictly want the cart before the horse. They want the fruits of life and happiness of life before they find it within themselves first. I want to give you some how-tos. These are interesting, and they are only done by people who really will sit down and practice. You've got to practice. Learning to use your mind is like getting on the bicycle for the first time in your life. At times you'll get on it and you'll fall off. You've just got to be diligent and want to move through it and to stay on the bicycle a while and go through this. And sometimes you'll fall, but don't let it bother you. I'd like you to look and see tomorrow and today. And for those of you who are at home, I'd like to hear from you on this. I'd like you to see how your mind creates problems. There are no problems in your life. When you wake up in the morning, there are no problems. Your mind has to remember them and make them. It sits there and goes, oh, we're awake. Well, what kind of mischief should we get in today? Remember what our neighbor said to us yesterday? Let's take that personally. We'll start a little problem. Or maybe we'll be going along and the mind will suddenly click in and say, you know, for your age, you're not very far. You're not where you should have been. Watch your mind create problems. I want you to see, go out into a day and watch it create confusion. You're sitting there at lunch and you can't figure out what you want to eat, and you allow your mind to confuse you and frustrate you. You can't make a decision because your mind's going, well, what about this? And what about that? And if we did this, we could go over here. And if we didn't do that, we might do this. Watch it. Watch the mishigas of the mind. Watch it twist and analyze and theorize and just be the observer of it. You will learn so much about yourself that you are not your mind and that your mind is not your greatest power yet. Your heart is. The second thing, if you are daring enough to do this, I'd like you to live one day Just one day with no rights and wrongs, no goods and no bads. Your mind, my mind, creates good and bad, right and wrong. Isn't it interesting? You know, people come to this country of ours from other countries, from other cultures, and what they do seems wrong to us or inappropriate. Can we say that? Terribly inappropriate. We see somebody at the table with certain manners that we would not deem right. And yet, in their country, they're perfectly right. Maybe they don't eat with a fork and a knife. They eat with their face or something, you know? I've seen a lot of Americans eat like that. But as they're eating, and you look at it, you go, oh, that's disgusting. You could look at them and say, well, you know, there's no right and wrong in that. Where they live, that's what goes. They're not a lesser person because they don't eat with a fork and a knife like we do. Drop what's right and wrong, what's good and bad, just for a moment, and just see things as they are. And as you learn to accept things as they are, as you drop right and wrong, you will find how judgmental your mind has been. And in seeing that, all of the illusions, all of the pain, the resistance of life is diminished in that moment. It is enough to see it, and that's when great healing occurs. That's when we unleash the possibilities of our heart through our mind, and for the first time we have something called clear mind. And when we are clear, we can see things as they are, know things as they are, and that's when our real potentials come out. That's when our real power comes out. That's when our real energy comes out. That's when, for the first time in our life, we're alive because we are not subject to what they say. We are subject to who we are. You are not your mind, dear friend. You're greater than that. You are your greatest sense of heart. Thank you. We've been talking about our minds, that we are not just our minds, and that our minds cannot be shifted due to the idea of taking on an affirmation or taking on a new thought, that we remain the same until something deeper is changed within us. We have a question down here we'll begin with.
Yes, I admire your discipline within this level of consciousness. The question that I had was, have you been able to retain your work in your subconscious mind and be able to retain memory to that, to your conscious level state of mind?
No. I've dropped the subconscious totally. I don't dilly-daddle in there anymore. I used to play a lot. That's such a good question. I used to play a lot in that. And the subconscious mind is one of those direct things that goes to the ego. And a lot of people who play around with their ego will play around with that. And it's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's a part of learning. But for me, I have dropped that part. I'm working for clarity. All I want to do with my life is I want to see things as they are. I don't want to make them what they're not. I want to see them the way they are. I have gone through my life, and while we're talking personally, I have gone through my life and bungled my way through the whole situation for many, many years because I tried to make things what they weren't. I misinterpreted things as they are. It caused me great pain and suffering. I read all the books, Think and Grow Weird, all of them. You know what I mean? All of the popular Think and Grow books. I finally came upon a point in my life where I couldn't go on anymore the way I was. If I created one more mess in my life, I just needed that, like one more aggravation. And I began to remember a man who I studied with many years ago. And his clarity really was quite interesting. And I went back to some of those old teachings, and I found out while I was with him, I didn't pay a bit of attention. It's only now that I'm paying attention to him, and he's gone, dead. Clarity is what I want. And now I can tell you my life has changed radically for the simple fact I'm not trying to push life up the hill with this great big boulder. You know what? And I used to do it, and I'd get it to the top of the hill, and then it'd roll down the other side. I found out the best way to do it is if the rocks are supposed to be on the hill, they'll be there. Yes?
Do you believe in astral projection?
Do I believe in astral? I believe it's possible. I don't think it's necessary. And I don't think you're a more spiritual person because you project. I was doing a class recently, and I said to the class, now let's practice our meditation, our Zazen, before we meditate. And this girl raised her hand. She says, well, do you want us to astral travel out of our body around the room? And I said, no, darling, stay in your body. I mean, it's possible and it's happened. We all know that. But doesn't mean stay here. Be with us. We need you. Focus, okay? Next question. This is a great question, and thank you for sharing.
You spoke of a teaching that I think has been accepted for many, many years as, you are what you or you think about, or you create your own reality.
Yeah, you are what you think.
And
it's like you are what you eat.
Yeah, you are what you absorb.
Yeah.
Not what you eat.
Yeah.
But anyway, in terms of the thoughts, you're talking about shifting from that mental aspect to the level of heart.
Right.
And I'm not quite sure of that transition and how you can create change with that.
Create change where?
Things that I want different in my life. Things that I
that's
want.
the difference, my dear, dear friend. And this is a beautiful question. When you're working from your heart, there's no need to change anything. You learn to accept things just as they are. Our life has been a great struggle because we've wanted what we can't have or don't seem to have. When you learn to want what life gives you, you will have more than enough. That transition is a very scary one. People think they're in control of their life because of the thoughts that they hold and the things that they have. And they think, well, if I affirm this, at least I know I'll get it. They get it, and it's not what they want. It's not what they need. It's not what their heart desires. It doesn't fulfill them. There's still that empty kind of void right here. When you make the transition from no longer being a slave to your mind and laboring under its wants and needs, because to be honest with you, what you think would make you happy won't. Yeah, nothing that you think will make you happy will. People will strive all of their lives for things and they'll never be happy. Your heart knows of your needs even before you ask, so to speak. So when you follow your heart, you begin to find out, oh my God, I would never have picked that. If you had given me 100 different things in my life that I could pick from that would make me happy, I never would have picked that one. But your heart will take you there. The beautiful thing about this teaching is you don't have to do anything anymore. It all happens through you. And you are the witness of it all. It's like Jesus and his healings. He never did them. They happened through him. As he kept saying, I don't do this. The Father within me does this. He worked from his heart. He never said, well, I'm going down to Galilee now and heal a few lepers. Knock off a few before lunch. You know what I mean? He did what he did. You don't think of him like that, do you? Yes.
What I hear you saying then, Greg, is we're all afraid to let go.
Oh, darling, are you perceptive? We're so afraid to let go. And the interesting thing is, it's like climbing a ladder. Until you let go of this rung, how are you going to get to the top? The whole process of spirituality, and you're very wise for saying this, the whole process is not gaining more, it's losing more. And the more you lose, the more you'll have. In metaphysics, the only attraction it has to most people is, how can I get more when not do anything? It's the old American thing, How do I get more money without working? How do I get more of this without trying? This work is a stretch. And he said the same thing, and it's very interesting. How do you make that transition? There is a funny point when you're working from your head and you're working to your heart where you're in no man's land. And when you're there, you're going to be very uncomfortable. But in that period of time, that's why you need to fast, as Jesus talked about fasting and praying. Fasting meaning let go, let go, let go. And the prayer is the prayer of acceptance, of love, of where you are without the need to resist. We spend most of our life resisting. I don't want to go. I don't want to do that. I don't want to face that. And we even see it in the life of Jesus. Take this cup from me. In the Garden of Gethsemane. Most of my life has been spent there, especially being a minister. You spend most of your life in the Garden of Gethsemane. Next question.
Greg, what's the best way to achieve a sense of peace when dealing with people that are very rigid, they think either good, bad, right, wrong?
Maintain yourself. Above everything in life, be yourself. Maintain you. And if they need to judge things as right and wrong, good and bad, if they need to do that, let them do it. Don't let it affect you. Why would they affect us anyway? You know what I mean? Unless we were judging them. When you're looking at them and we're looking at people who are very rich and going, you're very rigid, that's a judgment. Of course they're very rigid. It's obvious. Look how they walk. Look how they think. It's obvious. The best way to do it is to seek a peace within yourself and work around it. That's the only way I've ever been able to find it. There are always going to be those people in this world. Believe me, they're everywhere. Next question.
Do you have some basic steps as a summary of how to make the journey from here to here?
Yeah, it's easy. Breathe. That's it. That's this next question. You see, the whole effort is just to breathe. The whole effort is life. The journey from here to here is spent in life. When you've had enough baloney, when you've had enough of your own stuff, and you're tired of it, and you can see, I have created this grandioso thing, and you're tired of creating, then you'll work to your heart. But you see, I can't make you do it, and I can't persuade you. Nobody can. Buddha couldn't, Jesus couldn't. They were all Buddha was known of as the compassionate Buddha because he worked from his heart. Jesus was a very loving man. It's a very sad thing about Jesus, so misunderstood. He loved us, he loved his disciples, he loved all of us, but we all misunderstood him for the simple fact that we were all up here. The Jews, the Pharisees, the scribes, even his own disciples, they wanted a Messiah. They didn't want a teacher, a master. So they got a master. They didn't get their Messiah, and they were all very upset, and they missed Jesus. That's why he said to them, having eyes do you not see? Having ears do you not hear? So breathe, darling, breathe, live, and every day you're making the journey from here to here. It's a slow walk, but when you can accelerate it by letting go, and the more you let go, the more the walk is accelerated, okay? I want to thank you here for sharing. You guys were great, and you at home, we'll be right back, so please don't go away. Thank you. So beautiful here on the beach. Kind of get a sense of the tranquility of our being if we're very, very careful. There are many people in life who would have you believe inside of yourself that your mind is your greatest power. But I'll tell you something. Unless our mind is connected to our heart, reflecting our heart, our mind can be our worst enemy. So please remember this week as you go out into your day. Start thinking not so much from the logic of your mind and your senses, but begin to look at life from your heart. When we learn to look at life from our heart, we begin to find our greatest treasure is there. And the Master was right when he said that our greatest treasure was in our heart. So learn to think from it. You will know when you're thinking from the heart. You'll feel a sense of compassion. You will quickly forgive. You won't take yourself so seriously. You won't look at appearances in life and take them just for appearance sake. You'll begin to have a deep sense of humor. You'll begin to love more freely, more fully. And your mind will not be the block it once was. Now it will be an avenue of tremendous love and tremendous compassion. Your and my greatest power is in our heart. And as a man thinketh from his heart, he becomes very aware, very clear. And for the first time in our life, we understand who we are and what we are. Practice this week. Write me. Let me know how you're doing. We're interested. Work from your heart more this week and see what happens. Some very great changes can occur when we work from that point of view, and I'm interested in your life. I want to know. Again, just very briefly, I want to remind you of your financial support for this television program. Please remember to let us know not only through your letter how you're doing, but please support us. We appreciate your gifts. We appreciate your contributions, especially when they come from your loving heart. Next week on Aspire, we're going to seek to offer you more of these spiritual inspirations. I hope you'll plan to be with us. It is our endeavor to offer you the highest, most loving points of view of truth that we possibly can. We're very privileged to offer you this program. We thank you for watching. We thank you for telling a friend about it. And we thank you for your help in being a part of our family. Go have a beautiful week and let your mind love you all the way through. God bless.
Every day we take a step, we understand. The closer that we get, we're finding who we are.
Dr. Penn's wardrobe is provided by the Gentleman's Quarter, located in Del Mar and La Jolla, California.
The left and right, the ups and downs, the darkness or the light. We're finding who we are. There's so many